For more on this, let's bring in Fox News contributor Marc Thiessen, former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. I mean, I think it's pretty funny line that we're going to need a bigger ballot. It's certainly true. What do you think about these three getting into the race this week?
Well, we have an embarrassment of riches in the Republican Party when it comes to our bench. And look, people are not afraid of Donald Trump, apparently. He's not scaring anybody out of the race. Look, he's got 52% support in the Real Clear Politics average, so he's ahead. But his support is a mile wide and an inch deep. And here's why. If you look, there was a CBS poll that shows the breakdown of the Republican electorate is this way. There's about a quarter of the electorate who is supporting Trump. There's about a quarter of the electorate who says they will not support Trump under any circumstances. And then about half of the GOP electorate says they're deciding between Trump and other candidates. So what that means is 76%, 75% of the GOP electorate is up for grabs. They're either not supporting Trump or open to supporting other candidates. And so we got to see if one candidate can emerge to consolidate that not Trump camp with enough of these what I'd call soft MAGA who like Trump but are thinking about other candidates and take him on. And I think that's possible.
And Mark, what does that one candidate have to do to emerge? Because with every person who jumps in, that vote is getting fractured even more. Obviously, former President Trump has that huge block of voters that he's leading the polls right now. But with every person jumping in, it's going to take a piece of the pie away from someone else. So what does someone like a Ron DeSantis or someone else have to do to step up and collect some of those voters you were just talking about?
Well, think about it this way. There are really two GOP primaries going on. There's the GOP primary to be the nominee to challenge Joe Biden, but there's also a GOP primary to challenge Donald Trump, who's the front runner for the nomination. And so people, right now it's early. We haven't even had any debates yet. Ron DeSantis just announced. You got other candidates getting in. There's a primary going on amongst these people to decide who is the best, for Republicans to decide who the majority who don't want Trump to be the nominee, to decide who is the best person to challenge him. At some point, that field's got a winnow, because if you've got, I mean, it's better than it was with 19 candidates and two different debates going on in 2016. But at some point, there's got to be somebody who emerges from that field to be the challenger. Because if it's as you say, Bill, if it's a multiple candidates going against Trump, he'll win with a plurality like he did in 2016. So people have to have discipline and try and catch a wave. See if right now DeSantis is the front runner, so they're waiting to see if he stumbles. But if he doesn't stumble, then he should have it. And if he does stumble, somebody else has to emerge to take that spot.
Mark, polls consistently show that inflation and the economy and immigration are top concerns, but foreign policy is going to play a role here, especially with what we see not just in China, but of course with Russia and Ukraine. Two of the candidates from yesterday's Sunday shows commented on this. Listen here.
You've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got Iran trying to build a bomb. But none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. Biden had a whole year to prevent that war in Ukraine, and he didn't do it.
Number one threat to the U.S. military is right now, our top military threat is the Sino-Russian alliance. In Russia, by further arming Ukraine, we are driving Russia into China's hands. And so what I think we need to do is end the Ukraine war on peaceful terms that, yes, do make some major concessions to Russia. In return, Russia has to leave its treaty and its joint military agreement with China.
You had a big essay in the Washington Post over the weekend about an America First case for wanting to help the Ukrainians. What do you think of those two responses there?
Nikki Haley is right and Vivek is wrong. It's just that simple. Look, I mean, we're not driving Russia and China together. They've been together for years. I mean, Putin has met with Xi Jinping 40 times. We're not creating that. And if you think about how China looks at the Taiwan situation, if we're not willing to help Taiwan, which is an internationally recognized sovereign state, defend itself from external aggression, are we really going to defend Taiwan, which is not? And if we're not willing to just spend money to defend Ukraine, we're not spending no American troops involved. Are we really going to risk the lives of American forces to defend Taiwan? Xi Jinping is looking at Ukraine and saying, if they're not willing to defend, if they're not going to defend Ukraine, they're certainly not going to. I've got a free green light to go after Taiwan. So it makes war. If we fail in Ukraine, it makes war more likely with Taiwan. And you know who recognizes that? Taiwan, because Taiwan's ambassador just gave a speech the other day where she said that Ukraine's survival is Taiwan's survival. She's absolutely right.
And Mark, back in 2016, we all remember GOP primary. That debate stage was packed. A lot of fireworks. This time around, it seems like they're trying to make the debate rules a little bit more stringent. If we can pull this up right now, some of the new rules for the RNC to get on that first debate stage, you got to have 1% polling in 3 national polls, and you got to have about 40,000 registered donors. Do you think upping the strictness a little bit this time around will kind of improve the quality on the stage and make it so people's eyes don't glaze over with having 1 million people up there?
Yeah, and I think it should be a sliding scale that goes up with every debate. So you have a lower bar to get into the first debate, because I think everybody needs a fair shot who's got any kind of support to make their case and see if they can catch a wave. But as the primaries advance, I think it should be harder and harder to get on that debate stage. You have to demonstrate that you're catching on in the polls, because at some point it's got to be a two-man race. It just has to be. We can't follow the strategy of the Ted Cruz strategy of 2016 is, well, I'll just be the last man standing and I'll take Trump down. That's not going to work. You got to have a candidate going into Iowa who's going to be the challenger to Trump, and it's got to be a two-man race. And people have just got to try. It's a free country. Everybody should get in and see if they can catch a wave. But if you don't catch a wave, you got to get out and let one person take them on.
Marc Thiessen this morning. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.